What's up, amigos? Today we have the opportunity to interview the champion player, Francisco. Francisco, do you want to say hi?
Hey, what's up, guys? So my name is Francisco Garate. I am the champion of Houston, Texas, and I played something that got so many people upset. And I will say I do not blame them at all.
I think you were trying to make a statement, right?
But when it comes to playing a mill deck, which in all honesty, if people want a deck to get hit, like Wise Man Loop or Daimonis and all that, we need people to play it. And if people don't play it, they're not going to hit it.
Right. How serious it is at that point. Are you the first one that won first place, or has another mill deck won first place? I can't remember.
So I was the first one to win first place for a solid 12 hours. And then 12 hours later, Melissa gets first place in Indonesia.
Oh, I see. I gotcha. So the timing, literally the same weekend, but different time zones. Gotcha.
Yeah, it was super funny. And I actually got to interview him. He's awesome. He says the same things like, we didn't want to play it, but, we want to win. And at the same time, we want to get this card hit. Like, yeah,
absolutely.
Civil duties.
Right, exactly. And for the viewers, just a heads up. This interview might be a little bit different, but it will still be similar. It's just a different type of deck. It's a different breed on its own, to be honest. But still, more important as well is getting to know the player as well. I know Francisco has been on the channel before, I think. And you also have your own socials, right? NaruSamurai. You want to promote that a little bit, like for a plugin?
Of course. So people know me as NaruSamurai. I stream on Twitch, YouTube. I'm getting back into all of it. I used to do a lot of it last year. This year has been a big change for me because I kind of started working on managing my team because my team was getting a lot more popular with topping, things like that. So I've been working with my teams, not socials, but overall, building them up, figuring out finances and all that. But with all that figured up, I'm kind of excited to get back into content. If you guys want to catch me, like I said, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I forgot Twitter's called X now, but
Everybody still thinks Twitter.
Yeah, you catch me on there. I will be putting up videos. I'll be live streaming. Awesome. And it's going to be a really fun time.
Yeah, and I'll put your socials on the description too for those that want to follow you. For sure. I guess real quickly, what community do you come from? Do you want to talk about a little bit from your locals, anything like that?
Of course. So I originally in Florida. I'm still from Florida. My community kind of first started in Miami, Florida. Built a few friends there. And then when college came around, I moved up to Central Florida. And that's kind of been my community. So I was not a person afraid of traveling. So when I first started off, I went all the way up to Georgia, back to Florida, Florida. Nice. So I kind of built up that very well Eastern networking for Card Fight Vanguard. So anytime I go to an event, I probably know 60% of the people there.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's a huge locals when Georgia comes up next week. And
is that Duluth, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, Duluth.
That's coming up real quick. Awesome. That's really cool. For preparation, I guess with the mill deck, just dive into your thought process on how you prepare with it. Yeah, feel free to say whatever you want with this list or.
Of course. Strategy. Okay, so I will tell you, you're right. This video will be a lot different because I'll tell you the preparation was non-existent. I went to, I did not have the deck finished until Friday night.
Holy crap.
Before the event on Saturday. I had all the pieces that weren't missing and then my Narukami deck. And I was already solid for Narukami for that weekend. And I had the mill deck just to be it's always an option.
Yeah.
And then that same Friday morning, they hit Demolition Dragon, which obviously doesn't affect the format or the tournament, right? But I was kind of frustrated. I was kind of really? They hit Narukami again. I've gone through 6 ban lists, and they keep hitting my 2 favorite clans. And mind you, most of it for good reason. I understand why Mystery Flare got hit. I understand why
he did play that last year.
I understand why Mellow Amusement got hit. I understand why Englisha got hit. I understand why Stunverse got put to 1. I fully get all that, right? But you're gonna tell me you're gonna choice restrict Sweep Command with Demolition Dragon? What kind of hit is that? So I was upset. I was okay. Talk to one of my good old friends from Miami and be all right, man, I had to make a choice. Do I play Demolition for the last time with Sweep Command this weekend? Or do I give out my frustrations with the Loop deck? And he's nah, you should play Narukami. I hung up with him. He gives me a call 5 seconds later being You know what? Nah, play the loop deck.
Oh, okay. I was not expecting that. And then let me call him back. I'm like, that's funny.
Yeah. So in that second, I was like, all right, we're going in with loop deck. So I practiced it with a solid 5 games against Peter. We played, what was it? Narukami versus loop, because I was doing what I was worried about. I already knew that I was going to lose to Mega Colony. So I said, there's no point in trying playing testing it. I mean, the only way I beat Mega Colony is if they either go into the new stride, or sorry, the history collection stride instead of Ghidorah, which why would you? Or if they just ride the grade 3 Ghidorah and lock down the column, I can still do 3 circles.
Gotcha.
But like, you're just going to go into Ghidorah. We know you.
Right. Exactly. So that's really the preparation that went into it at that point in a nutshell. Awesome. Did you want to like dive into the list itself? I could bring it up if you want on screen. You can start whenever.
All right. So with the list here, it's kind of different from a normal list. Like most of the cards, we're not pushing for damage at all. All the cards are kind of just meant for me to use and not to affect my opponent. The only card that could touch my opponent is Sistico, but honestly, I don't really care about stunning your rear guard. The only thing that matters is that I can put a normal unit to the bottom. But I guess I'll get a little bit into the list. So going into the list, I mean, there's nothing much that's affecting your opponent's turn. You do have access to mostly any card solitaire in your own deck. Your grade 1 rides pretty generic. It doesn't matter what you ride. If you have to ride Armeli, Murtoa, or Hanali, Murtoa is the preferred ride because you get another card in hand. But you will be giving your opponent another card in hand. Not a real big deal since we're not really playing against our opponent. But, you know, just keep that in mind if you want them to not have a certain card or you're trying to like lower the metagaming to get to your grade 4 turn.
Yeah.
Going into grade 2, like grade 1s, your grade 2s kind of matter. You just want your Sistico or Pattery to be ridden. Reason you don't want to ride the Blackwing Girl is because she is an 8k base. So you just want to give your opponent more reasons to swing at you. Being a 10k makes things a little bit easier since you have your heal triggers available, giving you another 10k power so you take less damage that turn.
So you want to survive that turn, basically.
Yeah, okay. We got to get to grade 4. Yeah. So we got to survive. Then for these 2 turns with grade 1, grade 2, if you're going first, grade 1 obviously doesn't attack, and then grade 2, you're just going to pass turn. You kind of don't want to give them any counterblast at all. Even if the deck doesn't require counterblast, just don't give it to them. Don't give them more reasons to swing at you. Or if you're going to activate Hanali that turn on grade 2 or at grade 3, you don't want to give them more than 4 or 5 attacks. So no counterblast. Back to the Blackwing Girl. If you do get 1 damage while you rode grade 2, you can easily call her on board, put her to soul, and draw something that's useful to guard, hopefully like a 10k guard or a 15k guard. And then we get into our grade 3, and the whole idea of not attacking still applies with Referade because she actually rests herself and performs her own type of drive checks. So if you only have 4 or less force markers, you gain 2 imaginary gift forces. And then for every force marker on a different rearguard circle, you're going to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck and add them to your hand. And all triggers that are revealed, you can activate them. So if you get 3 draw triggers, you just drew 3 more cards.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes, yeah. So overall, this deck kind of was made for this loop, which is funny enough. Like I would totally be honest with you. I told you earlier that I did not have a lot of preparation with this deck.
Yeah.
The parts where I can activate the trigger effects, I did not find out till round 1 when my opponent mentioned it.
I mean, that's really good that you found out early enough. Yeah.
I'm a quick learner.
So let me ask you this. Like, if you went second and you could stride, you still didn't stride? You just did this effect to still get advantage? Or did you stride actually?
Yes and no. Okay. So they have rear guards. There is a small, like, dots about striding. So like if they don't have any rear guards, stay on ref rate, you get more out of it. You still get triple drive pretty much. You reveal 3 cards and then activate all trigger effects. But if they did have a rear guard, I would kind of consider going into Alprina. She's a 1-of in the deck, funny enough, but like you only need to do her once. Okay. But her skill is Soul Blast 1 on act. Choose up to 2 of your rear guards and return them to your hand. So the whole dots of going into Alprina is that she's going to swing at a rear guard, but during the act phase, if I have anything like a Murtoa or anything that can let me draw a card, I'll probably just try activating them and then bouncing them back to my hand.
Right.
And then proceed to swing Alprina to rear guard. So it's just a way to get maybe a tiny bit more cards in hand, but not fully guaranteed.
Gotcha. Cool.
But after we do that and we survive our turn with probably 4 or 5 damage, we get finally to the one and only girl, Crystal Pop Star Eve. Mm-hmm. And this is where my opponent kind of can like pull out their phone, play a little bit of Gallica, and relax, because I'm going to be messing around with the deck for a bit.
You mean Genshin?
I will tell you. Yeah. So I go in and Eve's skill says cost, look at the top card of your deck, and you may call that card to an open rearguard circle. So I can just look at the top card of my deck if I want. But while she's there, I can like look, call.
Yes. And
because we have cards like Honolulu, Weddle, Ermeli, and the Blackwing Girl, we can keep clearing our board to keep looking at the top card and calling it.
Yeah.
Now, a good question is, what if you get a lot of bricks? Like, what if I top call 2 of the PGs and then the heal trigger and then probably this draw? Like, how do you clear up that field? Weirdly enough, again, a little bit of R&D's in there. But if you do see a good chunk of Weddles coming out, you can call over some of the units to Soul Blast the Weddles and then call Ermeli. Even though you need her for the loop, you can activate Ermeli to send back the Weddles back to deck. And even though we're putting cards back to deck, we're putting cards that clear up the field. So we're still going to get to like 1 card left in deck. But the fact that we're putting back resources to keep the field empty is going to help with that.
Gotcha. No, thanks for breaking that down, because like some people were even asking me about that and I wasn't 100% sure either.
Yeah, so 2 cards can return things back to deck. One is Sistico, which I will tell you, mind you, I shouldn't tell you because I really don't want to keep seeing these loop decks, but Sistico returns something from your drop to the bottom of the deck, which is okay for the loop, but I do not recommend doing this like trying to get to the loop, because there's no point at the current moment. You're trying to get down to 1 card first, and it's just better to save your Sisticos when you're ready to play them. Ermeli, though, doesn't matter because she's going to go back to the deck eventually when you play a Sistico. So you can use as many of your Ermelis as possible to make sure you get down to 1 card in deck. And returning the Weddles is 100% the best play. And you most likely will, because you have Murtoa coming out, Soul Blasting 1 Weddle. And then once 1 Weddle's already in drop zone, Ermeli just needs to Soul Blast the other one for her skill.
Gotcha.
And like you were saying with how they can get down, all these cards are most likely in your hand. You just play them over the useless units. So if you have a draw trigger on the field and you need to get it off, you call over the rear guard.
Overlord circle. Yep.
Yeah. Now, the last part to get to about this loop is the actual loop, which there are, I would like to say, 2 iterations of the loop that you can do within this deck.
Yeah.
And one of the iterations has like 2 forms of it. It's super weird. And like when you keep playing it, you may enjoy it for a little bit, but just remember this deck needs to be hit.
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah. So the first iteration is the most well-known. I'll just call it the 3 Weddle iteration. So, God, it's so hard to do this with deck list, but I'll try my best. So for the 3 Weddle iteration, the last card in your deck is a Weddle. That can be guaranteed by just playing a Sistico and then putting the Weddle to the bottom, then top calling whatever was not the Weddle.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're going to play Ermeli. Ermeli is going to Soul Blast the card. Once the loop starts, she'll be Soul Blasting a Weddle, but for the first beginning of the loop, probably just Soul Blast whatever's in your Soul at the current moment. And you definitely will have Soul because you have this draw trigger that goes to Soul, as well as this Blackwing Girl. So you're never missing Soul.
Makes sense.
Once you retire Ermeli, you're going to put 2 Weddles to the bottom, and then after which you're then going to have 3 Weddles in deck. This is around the time I would kind of tell my opponent that I'm not going to shuffle for Ermeli because there's only 3 Weddles in the deck. And then I'll ask if he's fine with me revealing my deck. And then I would continue the loop. Reason I do this is to save time. Exactly.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So after which we're going to top call the first card being Weddle. Weddle is going to go to Soul and bounce the Sistico that we played earlier for Ermeli. We're going to play Sistico again, put Ermeli to the bottom of deck. So now then there's 3 cards in deck, 2 Weddles and an Ermeli. After which we're going to play Murtoa, Soul Blast the Weddle that we put to Soul, top call this Weddle again, and then put that Weddle to Soul to bounce Ermeli. I'm sorry, Murtoa. Then we're going to call Weddle from top of deck. Now there's only Ermeli in deck. And with that, we're going to put the 3rd Weddle to Soul, bounce the Sistico, play the Sistico, and put Weddle that's in drop to bottom of deck.
Yeah.
And then after which, we're going to have Ermeli on top and then Weddle. We top called the Ermeli with Eve.
Yep.
And then activate that Armelli. Now we're back to 3 Weddles in deck for the loop.
And that's where you start soul blasting the Weddles, like you mentioned, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. And then if someone asks how do you get the 3rd Weddle into the drop for Armelli, that's what Pattery is for. While she's on the field, you can soul blast for her skill to give her 5k. It is not once per turn. It's just during main phase.
Oh,
so if you need to get the last Weddle out, you use Pattery.
Gotcha.
That is...
Go ahead.
Sorry. So that is one version of the loop. There is another iteration of that same loop where you have the 3 Weddles, but you already have Sistico and Murtoa onto the field. And if they're already on the field, you just top call the Weddle, put the soul, bounce the Sistico, call the Sistico.
Yeah.
Top call the Weddle, put the soul, bounce the Murtoa, call the Murtoa. And it's just using Weddles first before Sistico and Murtoa instead of Murtoa and Sistico first.
Okay. Gotcha.
Now, the last one, I kind of found this out recently. It is a loop for the deck and it works. The only issue is you have to keep shuffling your deck, which slightly annoying, but I found this one kind of interesting. If you don't have Pattery and let's say 3 of her ended up in your damage zone, or if you lost 2 Weddles, this is an option for you. So the last card in your deck is going to be your Armelli.
Okay.
And then you're going to have an Armelli on the field. You're going to activate the Armelli on the field to put back 2 Weddles. And then you're going to shuffle your deck. So now you're shuffling 1 Armelli and 2 Weddles.
Okay.
After which you're going to play Sistico. Once you play Sistico, you're going to put another Armelli to the bottom of the deck. So your top 3 is a randomization of 2 Weddles and Armelli. And then the last card of your deck is a guaranteed Armelli.
Okay. Yep.
After you do that, you're going to top call the first 2 cards, which are no matter what going to be either 2 Weddles or Armelli and a Weddle. But one is always going to be a Weddle.
Oh, because of the shuffling. I got you.
Yes. So once you top call the top 2, you're going to put the Weddle that was called to soul and bounce the Sistico. Now you have 2 cards left in deck. The top card, which is probably Weddle, and if not, Armelli, and then the next card is Armelli.
Okay.
That time you play Murtoa, you soul blast the Weddle that you put to soul for Sistico, and then you draw and call the top card. After which you're going to put a Weddle to soul to bounce the Murtoa, and then you're going to activate the Armelli that's on the field to return 2 Weddles while there's an Armelli still in deck.
Gotcha.
And this one's pretty weird because you think, well, you're shuffling the deck. How do you know? Does it really matter the order? And it's like, no, it doesn't. Because as long as you get the 1 Weddle, you have the loop.
Gotcha. It's almost kind of like a mini loop within the loop until you get what you want, essentially.
And it uses kind of less pieces, which are good. But it's also kind of
tedious to do.
It's tedious because your opponent can say, oh, but it's random because you're shuffling the deck. And I'm like, no, not really. I know what the top 2 cards
with
are most likely.
Yeah, exactly. Or low enough cards, I should say. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Wow, thank you for sharing that. Let me, is there anything else you want to point out in the deck before we switch gears?
Last thing, I guess, is Forbidal. I mean, I didn't talk much about her, but if you're on grade 3, you see Forbidal, you can use it to get Eve into your hand, which is the goal of Forbidal. One good trick that I did, and it's very niche, I think I did it a total of 3 times in the 10 rounds that I played.
Yeah.
But if you play, what's her name? Bibble.
Okay.
Soul Blast, retire this unit. So she's good late game too, because you can call over something and then activate her to retire out the field. So she's like the Honolulu and all that. But early game, if you see her while you're at grade 3 and you haven't gone Forbidal yet, or let's say you have Forbidal in hand and you have her in hand, you can play her, Soul Blast 1, retire her, draw a card, and then activate Forbidal, grab the Eve that you're missing in deck, and then recall her from the drop zone, and then activate her again. So if you want to increase your hand size, that's a good small way you can do it.
Oh, okay.
And then the little last thing is just knowing your G guards is probably the best thing. These 2 are going to be your favorite over here, Lucrece and Citron.
Yep.
Main things here is that when you kind of want to aim for Citron first if you have 2 heals in hand, if you're trying to guard a big turn, like let's say Narukami or something like that.
Yeah.
When you play Citron, if you don't have a Murtoa, call one of your grade 3s or the Eve in your hand. And when they have their next swing, or if you still need to guard that swing, you can go into Lucrece to bounce that grade 4 or grade 3 so that you can gain power.
Yeah.
For your Vanguard, make them a 19k base an 18k base.
Yeah.
The reason I say if you have a Murtoa is you play Murtoa first so you can draw a card so you don't lose anything in hand and then call the grade 3. You do leave a Murtoa on board, but that's going to be fine at the end of the day. So just make sure that you make yourself an easy guardable number so that you can survive the turn. Just small tips and tricks.
Nice. So I guess I typically ask people like, what do your matchups look like? But I feel like it's kind of rinse and repeat unless there's things that you just want to point out throughout the rounds that were kind of like key moments for you to like figure out or anything like that. Feel free to say whatever at this point.
Yeah, no, I fully get that. Like, you know, you just played Loop. There's not much to talk about. I fully agree. I fully understand. I will say one thing. I'll talk a little bit about my rounds, but first round I fought Steam Maidens, didn't give them counterblast. They didn't really get to play. Game ended pretty fairly. Second round was Narukami. I think I fought a total of 5 Narukami matches.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're the expert, so that works out for your favor.
Yeah, it worked out for me because I only had to ever worry about one turn that they activate Exterminate because they can call the heal trick or self-damage themselves. And because Exterminate doesn't turn a card face up in the G zone, they can never like turn up a Harmonix or anything.
Does that matter?
Or, well, if they turn up a Harmonix, they can deal themselves damage.
Oh, if they strode it. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, if they strode it or if they were able to turn face up. But the new History Collection Stride doesn't turn anything but himself face up, and Exterminate only doesn't turn anything face up.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's a good point. Wow. Okay. Now I follow. Okay.
So they only ever had one counterblast or one turn to do Exterminate if they saw the heal. I think 2 of the matches they didn't see the heal, which was good for me. But something I also noticed was none of these Narukami players ran the stand trigger that goes to soul and counter charges, which I feel is a missed opportunity when you're fighting into the Loop deck because you can do 2 turns of Exterminate if
you reuse the same counterblast.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
Exactly. So going with that, most of the Narukami matches when they had the Farmo getting 20k sound scary, but they're already under Honolulu. And when swinging at me, I'm also aware that I'm fighting Narukami. I stayed at 1 damage and I'm just, you know, taking it.
You're taking some
and then
blows.
When they exactly. And then when I get to my next turn, so let's say I didn't have Eve and I missed Eve because there was a lot of games where I didn't have Eve in hand.
Yeah.
I would have to stay at the ref raid and just activate ref raid again and increase my hand size.
Makes sense.
But I'm not worried because their next strike would be Exterminate again. And it's not like they're going to go into Stunverse because Stunverse is my choice. I get to choose whatever 4 cards in my drop don't matter to me.
Right. So it doesn't matter as much. Yeah.
So they're just drawing 2 cards and now they're swinging for like 18, 19. And that's when I do the whole Citron thing, make myself an 18k base. So some of these 13k attacks are not hitting. And, you know, they're still under Honolulu, the next one. So their turn just pretty much ends.
Have you ever double Honolulu? Or was that overkill at that point?
Have I ever doubled Honolulu?
Yeah, it's 2 counterblasts per
attack. Yeah.
But if you kept them at 1, then yeah, it doesn't matter, right?
Technically, yes, but it never came up. Okay. So what I mean technically is Eve lets me top call the card and I kept calling Honolulu's. So like I'll just I at one point had like 4 Honolulu's activated. But like disgusting. it never made it to their turn. Yeah, that's worst matchup, like I said, Mega Colony. I fought Mega Colony round 6.
Okay.
Yes, round 6. I survived 4 Gridoras. 3 Gridoras, died on the 4th one.
Oh, okay. So that one you lost, essentially.
Yes. And that whole thing I told you about they can't turn up Harmonix Messiah and Narukami, they can do that in Mega Colony.
Yeah, they can. Gridora.
Once they go into the Gridora and activate it, they turn up Harmonix. And then even though I don't give them counterblast, they're still countercharging.
Yeah, they got them off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can't really do anything there. I tried my best. Last match.
Okay.
I skipped all these other ones because all the other ones were the same way. Like I Eve looped, nothing really happened. Round 7, I damaged 3 Weddles. I still won that match though.
How? You just play normal Vanguard? No, I'm kidding. No.
I was playing against Narukami. No, I did not play normal Vanguard, and I just stayed on ref raid because I was like, well, they don't have counterblast. They're only going to be swinging for like pokes at me.
Yeah.
And I still have like 3. I have 2 heals in my hand, which kind of sucked. and we're good at the same time, but I need to hit at least like 2 heals to heal 2 of my Weddles, because 1 Weddle's in my hand. So if I can just get 2 Weddles, I can activate them. So I stayed on ref rate for another turn, and then activating ref rate again, I had 3 force markers. I gained 2 more, so now I have 5 force markers. I reveal the top 5 cards of my deck, add them to my hand, and activate all the trigger effects of them.
Yeah.
And I hit 2 heals, so I healed 2 of the Weddles.
That was timing. Oh my gosh.
So with that, I also had Honolly. I activated 1 Honolly. They already used their counterblast, so they can't use the heal trigger again. And then I have 4 heals in hand, and I'm like, okay, I'm gaming.
Wow.
And that one, funny enough, was the easiest time I did the loop because my deck was so small already at that point.
I can see that.
So I just performed the loop. There's actually a picture going around. The guy was a super nice guy. I mean, there was a few things in rounds I forgot. One thing, if you're playing a loop deck, is you got to talk to your judge, because I had to keep performing the loop in front of the judge so that the judge can accept that there's a loop going on. Yeah. And like pretty much end the game. He was probably the only opponent that asked if I could keep doing the loop, which I didn't have anything like, you know, I thought of that too. Like, what if I just tell someone to keep doing the loop? Like, they'll run out of time. But the judge said it a good way. Even though I'm playing something that's taking advantage of the comprehensive rules, I'm following the comprehensive rules.
Okay. Yeah.
But if someone's demanding that I perform the loop, which instead of declaring how many times I'm going to activate it, they're going against the comprehensive rules, because that would be under slow play.
Really?
Yes.
What? I would not expect that.
So like, example is my opponent has to answer honestly to the judge, right?
Yes.
I mean, he can say whatever he wants to me. Like, that doesn't matter. I mean, sportsmanship is another thing too, right?
Right.
But if my opponent is asked by the judge, is there any card that can stop the loop in your deck? And he says yes, then I have to perform the loop. But it's also within the time frame of how it's moving, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So he can't think about what cards he has to call out, because he can only keep calling until he hits the card that can stop the loop.
Right.
So the judge will be watching, making sure he's not thinking about what cards to call out, because that would just be considered slow play.
Right.
So I did not have to do that. He said no, right? Because he has to be honest to the judge, which I know there's no card that can interact with a loop.
Yeah, there's a deck.
There's only one way. Yeah. There's only one way the loop is stopped, and it would never happen, which is you call Skeleton Cannoneer, and then you call on top of it with Night Rose, and then activate Night Rose too.
Well, yeah, hit the Mortoa or whatever target you have.
But there's one thing you need for that, which is called a counterblast, and you're not going to get that counterblast.
Yeah. But you were going against Narukami anyway, right?
Yeah. I fought 1 Night Rose.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Was this the matchup with Night Rose or the matchup with another Narukami?
The last one was the Narukami matchup, which guy was super nice. Yeah. He was also very nervous too. He just wanted to win, which I fully understand.
Yeah,
you know?
He got that far too. I definitely understand.
Yeah. And then going into top 8, I got super lucky, because the Mega Colony guy got first in Swiss. Yeah. And he got paired against Narukami, which got 8th and Bubble did. And then that Narukami player beat the Mega Colony player. So I was like, oh, thank God.
Got rid of the problem. Oh, wow.
Then I had a second judge thing happen twice in top 8.
Okay.
So top 8, I fought Katrina.
Yeah.
And I will say Katrina's probably one of the few normal Vanguard matches that is difficult for the loop, because that Katrina turn is just too strong.
Hard. Yeah.
I will say the opponent was super nice, but like there was a situation that happened. Mind you, it was easier to guard for me because he went Force 2 instead of Force 1, which is kind of funny because I understand his logic. He went Force 2 to deal me more damage within the games to finish me off quicker. True. But because of that, you made it slightly easier for me to guard your attacks.
Yeah. I would stick with
Force
1.
Yeah, and then you're also giving me an out on one side because he didn't write another grade 3, so he didn't.
There's only one Force 2 marker. Gotcha. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, if he played Asha, which I know he didn't, right, and first strode into something to generate 2 Force 2s, maybe it would have been difficult, but it was very close. Now, I will say this match, all things considered, I would have lost. because I was at 3 damage. He had a force 2 on one side. His other rear guard was a lot bigger, but I only had 1 PG. So in case of anything, I need to take the Vanguard swing. So I took the Vanguard swing. He goes heal. Heals 1 damage.
Okay.
Which was great. It was funny. And then he hits critical, crit Vanguard, power to the rear guard that doesn't have a force 2 marker.
Okay.
And then he pulls another critical. And obviously these were nerves, right? I fully understand that, right? But if you don't change your mind right away, you know what I'm going to assume. So he got the 3rd critical and gave crit to rear guard, power to rear guard.
Wow.
And there was like judges are around watching this, right? And he doesn't say anything for like a solid 10 seconds. I'm like, okay. And I'm about to take it. And then he goes, crit Vanguard. So I didn't have to call judge. Judge intervenes. And then that judge got another judge. That judge got a staff. Staff got a third,
oh my
a fourth,
God, that's intense.
A second staff on what happened.
Yeah.
For the first 3 rounds of judges, all agreement was the crit was on the rear guard.
Yeah, at that point.
Then the last staff member was like, yeah, let's be honest, all the crits on the Vanguard. So I'm taking 3 damage. I'm at 3 damage. And I'm like,
oh, so you are taking 3 damage. Okay.
Yeah. So I damage 1, draw trigger, power Vanguard, draw a card, damage 2, heal trigger, heal 1 point of damage, and then damage 8. Yep. So now I'm at 5. Wow. I guard the last 2 attacks, and then I get into the Eve loop. While all that was going, there was like a solid 5, maybe 8 minutes of them trying to decide where the crit is. And like, I'm kind of like fuming. And like my opponent's just like saying sorry. And I'm telling him it's not his fault. Like, I'm not even upset that I'm not upset that he's changing his mind about the crit. I'm upset because I'm taking 3 damage. Like, I'm already looking at it. I'm taking 3 damage.
Yeah. Oh, right. The repercussion from it.
So like,
anyway. Yeah, I got you.
I'm more upset because I'm losing, right? Like, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It's like, it's okay to be upset. Just don't be a sore loser, right? But like, this is physically, I'm upset because I'm waiting to take 3 damage, and like, I'm not like throwing myself, right? I'm just in here like fully like fuming. Like, what could I have done better? Am I really gonna lose at top A? Am I honestly not gonna be able to get this deck hit? Because the second reason I took this deck, other than winning, of course, like, I'll be honest, I did want to win. In New York, we talked to a few judges because Melissa Loop made it into top 4.
Yeah.
But we were asked, so is this going to be enough data for it to get hit? And then they're like, they're not going to look at it unless it gets first or second.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So I went in an Eve loop hoping to get first or second so I can get this deck hit. Because I don't want to go to a Worlds.
And you're in top 4. Right. I gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So after healing, I got the Eve loop, won against the Katrina guy. We shaked hands.
And now you're in the final.
Fought against... Then top 4, I fought Narukami, the one that beat the Mega Conley person. I told him thank you first before starting the match. And when I fought him, I misplayed. And then I think this is the first time I've ever gotten a warning in Bushy Road's tournaments.
Okay.
But I forgot to rest Referade for her skill. Oh. I activated her skill, and then I swung rear guard with Referade to something. And I just wasn't thinking. I think I was blanking out. I was on autopilot at that point. And then I did the dry checks, and then the rear guard got retired, and then he drew for turn. But then what are they called? Not audience.
Judge?
Bystander was watching the match, and he mentions, like, isn't Referee supposed to be rested for her skill, right? Which honestly was a part that I kind of got upset about, because I don't understand why we're so close to people watching our match.
In top 8, yeah.
Yeah, because everyone's being loud. And like, it was inside a store. Oh. So like, I can pretty much hear everything. So I kind of just want to be a little bit more like quieter.
No, I get it.
So, but he did call me out. He was right. I swung with Referee at the rear guard, and they said it was easily reversible because since I can't do that, the cards go back to deck and just call back his rear guard, and his card that he drew for turn doesn't change.
Yeah. And
but they did have to shuffle my deck.
So you revealed the cards anyway, so you know what cards to put back. I gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but they did have to shuffle my deck because they're like, well, the deck needs to be shuffled because he saw what the top 2 cards are. And then the opponent was like, well, yeah. And then the opponent was saying, is like, yeah, but he didn't get any triggers. But now when I swing, he may hit a trigger now.
Right.
And then the guy responds like, yes, but technically, as long as your cards haven't been changing in the deck, your deck is always randomizing.
Yeah, exactly.
which I found very weird because technically that's not true.
Yeah.
But I took it, and then I took one of his attacks, hit a draw trigger, and I was like, ooh, this is what he was talking about. Power of Vanguard, draw a card. Still won that match. And then the final match was against Narakami, against Peter, my teammate. So it was more like a team kill at the last round.
Okay. Gotcha. And you won it all.
Yeah, it was a fair match at the end. Like, went back and forth. I was missing Eve. It was probably a good game, all things considered.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, that's cool. I'm glad you guys got a face off too. I know you guys are friends. I think you're on the same team, right?
Yeah.
Team kill. That's why you said.
I have Peter. Yeah, Peter, Charlie, Christian, a lot of members on my team.
Nice. Awesome, man. So I typically ask after matchups, like, what did you learn? What did you reaffirm? Or like what advice you would give to players? But this is such a unique deck that I don't know if those questions really apply, to be honest. So yeah. I guess with that being said, one, you want the deck to get hit, right? And that's
why do I want to get the deck to hit?
No, you want it to get. I'm saying you want it to get the deck hit, and that's why you played it, and did your best to even win first place overall too. So this video can also like be towards Bushiroad if they even take a look at this at all. So they have a little more data to make the decision. And I guess I'll express my opinion real quick is that any loops in any card game, especially like with Vanguard, is just never a good thing. It has a lot of impact with the community. It can discourage a lot of competitive play and also people trying to invest money into traveling for other BCSs as well. Especially if people are feeling that if they play a mill deck or a loop deck, I should say, and it's just an auto win to Worlds, essentially. A lot of that is just negative results from it. Like just, it feels bad, right? And you still won. You did the effort as a player. You piloted the deck to your best ability. You still faced viable opponents and everything, so you earn your invite still, but it's just, it affects the community as a whole in that sense of that judgment, right? And so that's my feedback if they watch this video as well. I don't want to go too long. Even wrote an article about it if they want to take a look too. But I guess with that being said, is there anything last minute you want to say about the deck or anything like that, and then just wrap it up for today?
Oh yeah, of course. I do want to bounce a little bit what you said. Like, I understand what I did. I know I played a loop deck, and I will say, like, even my impact on the players of that event, I felt bad, right? Like every round, the guy was upset. The person was upset. Like one person didn't even shake my hand. He walked away and like smacked my hand away. Like, I'll be honest. And then like other people gave me some like nasty comments and all that. And, it's I negatively impacted them. They negatively impacted me. Like, it builds bad sportsmanship when playing a loop deck. And like, it's not inherently like deserved. Like, I know what I did, right? But I don't deserve that. Yeah. But I also understand that like they're not being rude, or they are being rude, but they're not being rude on purpose. Like, they're upset because they didn't get to play, and like that's something that you don't want to happen in a game. Yeah. Right. Because I bet these are people that are not actively rude at all. Like, they're just upset that they had to fight something that shouldn't exist. Right. And to add on, what I think needs to get hit is Murtoa. Like, I talked to a few people about it. They're like, oh, what if they hit the Weddle? I'm like, if they hit the Weddle, you just run Akari. Does the same thing. You just need GB1, which is kind of easy. Yep. And then if you hit Murtoa, there's no way for them to draw and call. But obviously it does affect the Bermuda players, because then they can't get a free attack on the field. If they ban it for premium, it's fine. But for V, it can affect them. So a few people said a hard once per turn, right? Like, if they make Murtoa a hard once per turn.
Oh, that's a good point.
That, I think, is a good idea. But like I said, if you change the card, you're affecting all formats the card's used.
Oh, that's true.
So is a hard once per turn from Murtoa enough in V to make it different? Or is that going to kill V Murtoa entirely?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Anj and other Bermuda Triangle decks in V are already doing well without Murtoa, I think. And they just got their top 5 check for a grade 2 or less card, so that deck will be more consistent and still topping. So, but it does hit other decks that want to use Murtoa, so I understand that sympathy as well. So yeah, maybe just get rid of him premium.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, just call it a day at that point. But Bushiro can decide that at that point too. So
yeah, I trust that they'll make the right call, hopefully, and as soon as possible as an emergency hit or January's hit. Yeah, because February 3rd, I don't want to see that deck February 3rd.
Yeah, no, for Worlds. Oh my God, Nobody wants to watch that, even on stream, right? So I understand.
I've already been told by a few people on Twitter that if they don't hit it and it's legal in Worlds, you may want to like drive the point home. And I'm like, do I really want to play Eve loop or
oh god, yeah, that's your
add Worlds? I just can't do it, man. Like,
try to do
I
gentleman's
already hated myself. Yeah. I'll send like a post on Twitter, be like, "Hey, all world finalists, I'll add all of them to be like, gentleman's agreement, the loop decks? Question mark."
You know, somebody's gonna play it. I know. That's the bad thing about it. I know. There's no way to like prevent it unless it actually gets hit. So
yeah. Definitely. But yeah, those are my kind of last points. Like, it is negative. It's negative both ways too. Like, the person playing it is gonna get harassed. The person losing to it feels like they wasted their trip to Texas or New York or things like that.
Japan is not cheap if you're coming from out of the country, which most people are.
Yeah.
So that's only discouraging.
So like,
at least for the freemium format.
Exactly. So all honesty, loop decks shouldn't be enjoyed. I do think there's some times loop decks are fine. Like, as long as the loop's not infinite, it can be fine. Like, if you can cause a loop where, like, let's say the Pattery card, it gets 5k every time you do it. So like, if let's say they hit Myrtle and it's just Weddle and Ermeli, I can loop Pattery and increase your power to like 200 mil, which is fine because it's only going to be 2 attacks and I'm on Eve doing this loop. So it's only 3 attacks and 2 of them are 200 mil. So you're pretty much creating the OT, which if you guys are fine with the OT, 200 mil Pattery, it doesn't make a difference.
Infinite power, basically. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, there's some loops that are not as harmful compared to like this one where like you just win because you make your opponent deck out in this case because of an infinite. Yeah, right, exactly. No, I get it.
Now, if they're infinite power and an infinite or more, or a lot of attacks, then that needs to be hit. Like, that's why the Wise Man loop was hit. Yeah, because it got like 7 attacks with Wise Man being like too much power.
The Giera Wiseman?
There's the what's the name of it? The Grey 2. Fenrir loop.
Kazande.
Yeah. So like, just the fact that like that rear guard can keep attacking and give 10k power, like, it's difficult, it's annoying, and like that one's
No, I agree. And that was the only thing that could stop his LT. Actually, no, infinite power. Never mind. It doesn't matter. But yeah, the Wiseman loop back then was like 17 attacks that I've seen at most before. At least 54k plus. And that was when triggers were 5k. So like, you were GG at that point too. But anyway, I don't want to elongate the video too much, but I think we drove the point home with this interview. So I appreciate you for hopping on and expressing your thoughts and your honesty too. It's big. And to be honest, like, I've been interviewing players for 2 years on the channel, and this is the one that actually has been deviated completely different from all the ones I've done too. So it says something, right? So
of course.
With that being said, do you have any quick shout outs before we end?
Of course. So I do want to shout out my team, Team Eclipse. You guys have been awesome this year. We actually have the same members from last year going to Worlds already. Nice. Myself, Charlie, better known as Card Dweeb, and then Peter, which you guys see all the time doing commentary for Vision. He's also going to be going to Worlds, and we're just trying to see who else is going to be able to make it in Georgia. And I'm just proud of them. Like, we started in 2021, and like, just seeing that my team's doing well. We're hitting tops up in BCS. Like, you can't ask for more out of that, right?
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Other than that, I guess I shout out myself again. If you guys want to see more things going on with Narukami, as well as any other videos I got going on, check out my channel, NaruSamurai. And I do have a website as well, and I sell a few playmats. Yep. So I do recommend checking them out. I kind of just base it off of what's coming out. So if you're looking for a nice playmat with like the new booster that's coming out, or decks that are seeing meta play, go check it out.
Awesome. Thank you again for hopping on to the channel for this interview, Francisco. I appreciate you, man.
All right, no problem, boss. And to everybody else, remember 2 things: play hard, play strong, and ban Martoa.
Amen to that. And for the viewers, until the next one, amigos. Bye.